really excited because today we're going to learn a few things about Oscar Wilde. Have you ever heard of him? If you're familiar with him, that's great. And if not, I'm so excited that you get to discover him today. Here are 5 facts about Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was born in Dublin in 1854. He could speak English, German, French, Greek and Italian, but unfortunately for him, he couldn't speak a word of Irish. If you've ever been in Dublin, you can see the statue of Oscar Wilde on Merrion Square, as well as the house that he grew up in. Why not open Google Earth and try to find it yourself? Oscar Wilde wrote plays, poetry, novels, and stories for young people. Now, a word we're going to learn all about today is altruism. Oscar Wilde wrote stories with altruism in mind, and it's something that we should all practice. Altruism means that you do good deeds, expecting nothing in return, or caring more about others than yourselves. Can you think of people who are committing acts of altruism every day? Let's think. Well, at the moment, definitely nurses, doctors, delivery drivers, people who collect our bins, people who are working in restaurants to bring us food, post workers, shop workers, the guards. Can you think of any more examples? All these people are doing things to help all of us without even thinking about themselves. Let us know if you have anybody in your house or in your family or that you know. Please tell them a big I love you from all of us because we're so proud of everything they're doing to keep us going. Oscar Wilde's The Happy Prince is a perfect example of altruism. Any ideas what this story might be about? What can we see? There's a statue there. Why do you think we can see a statue? Let's open the pages and see. The Happy Prince, from the fairy tale by Oscar Wilde, and this version is by Jane Ray. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large ruby glowed on his sword hilt. One night, there flew over the city a little swallow. He saw the statue on the tall column, so he alighted just between the feet of the Happy Prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said to himself, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. Then another drop fell. A third drop fell, and he looked up. The eyes of the Happy Prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Who are you? He said. I am the Happy Prince. Why are you weeping then? Asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me. When I was alive and had a human heart, answered the statue, I did not know what tears were. My courtiers called me the Happy Prince, and now that I am dead, they have set me here so high that I know I can see all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, I cannot choose but weep. Far away, continued the statue, is a poor house. In a bed, a little boy is lying ill. He is asking for oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water, so he is crying. Swallow, little swallow, will you bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? I am waited for in Egypt, said the swallow. My friends are flying up and down the Nile and talking to the lotus flowers. Soon they will go to sleep in the tomb of the great king. The king is there himself in his painted coffin. Round his neck is a chain of pale green jade, and his hands are like withered leaves. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you not stay with me for one night and be my messenger? The happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak over the roofs of the town. He passed by the cathedral tower, where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging to the masts of the ships. At last he came to the poor house where the little boy lay ill and dropped the ruby onto the table. Then he flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold. When the moon rose the next day, the swallow looked up at the happy prince. I am just starting for Egypt, he said. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you not stay with me one night longer? I am waited for in Egypt, answered the swallow. There, on a great granite throne, sits the god Memnon. All night long he watches the stars, and when the morning star shines, he utters one cry of joy, and then is silent. At noon, the yellow lions come down to the water's edge to drink. Swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theatre, but he is too cold to write anymore. I will wait with you one night longer, said the swallow, who really had a good heart. Shall I take him another ruby? Alas, I have no ruby now, said the prince. My eyes are all that I have left. They are made out of rare sapphires from India. Pluck one of them out and take it to him. Dear prince, said the swallow, I cannot do that. And he began to weep. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Do as I command you. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away to the student's garret. And when the student looked up, he found the sapphire lying on his desk. I must bid you goodbye, cried the swallow, when the moon rose the next night. I am going to Egypt. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you not stay with me one night longer? It is winter, answered the swallow, and the snow will soon be here. In Egypt, the sun is warm on the palm trees, and the crocodiles lie in the mud and look lazily about them. Dear prince, I must leave you, but next spring I will bring you back 2 beautiful jewels in place of those you have given away. In the square below, said the happy prince, there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter. She has no shoes or stockings, and her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her. I will stay with you one night longer, said the swallow, but I cannot pluck out your eye. You would be quite blind then. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Do as I command you. So the swallow plucked out the prince's other eye, darted down with it, and slipped the jewel right into the palm of the little match girl's hand. Then the swallow came back to the prince. You are quite blind now, he said, so I will stay with you always. All the next day he sat on the prince's shoulder and told him stories of what he had seen in strange lands. He told him of the red ibises, who stand in long rows on the banks of the Nile and catch goldfish in their beaks. Of the Sphinx, who is as old as the world itself and lives in the desert and who knows everything. Of the great green snake that sleeps in a palm tree. And the king of the mountains of the moon, who is as black as ebony and worships a large crystal. "Dear little swallow," said the prince, "you tell me of marvellous things, but there is no mystery so great as misery. Fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there." So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich merrymaking in their beautiful houses, while the beggars were sitting at the gates. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. "I am covered with fine gold," said the prince. "You must take it off leaf by leaf and give it to the poor." Leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off, till the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the street. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. Everybody went about in furs, and the little boys wore scarlet caps and skated on the ice. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. But at last he knew he was going to die. "Goodbye, dear prince," he murmured, and he kissed the happy prince and fell down dead at his feet. At that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue. The leaden heart had snapped right in two. It certainly was a dreadfully hard frost. Early next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below with his town councillors. "Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks," he said. "And there's actually a dead bird at his feet," he continued. "We must issue a proclamation that birds are not allowed to die here." So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince. Then they melted the statue in a furnace, but the broken heart would not melt. So it was thrown on a dust heap, where the dead swallow was also lying. "Bring me the two most precious things in the city," said God to one of his angels. And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird. "You have rightly chosen," said God, "for in my garden of paradise this little bird shall sing, and the happy prince shall live forevermore." Now, wasn't that just a beautiful story? And although the ending is certainly sad, the message is really important, that it's a well-lived life when you leave nothing but good deeds behind you. Good deeds are so important because we can help make others feel better, and in turn, when we do good things for others, good comes back to us. But wouldn't it be great if we could set ourselves an aim until we're back in school? I have an idea. Let's make an altruism tree. Come on, I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to make an altruism tree, and I have made altruism trees with classes before. We made one once that was a 3D tree that went right up to the ceiling. But today we are going to do just a 2D one. First, we're going to choose a dark or striking colour for our background. So I'm going to choose the darkest colour there is. I'm going to choose black. But you can feel free to pick any colour you want. Next, I'm going to get some white paper. And again, remember, you only have to pick a contrasting colour. So you could pick blue and white, you could pick yellow and purple. It's totally up to you. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make the outline of my tree on the paper. I'm going to do the trunk and the roots. I'm doing a nice thin one because I want lots of space. And I'm going to do branches coming out of my tree, and then I'm going to give it sub-branches. Little branches coming out of there even. And now I'm going to cut it out. Now you can feel free to use a bit of paint if you want to colour your tree, but I'm actually just going to leave it plain today because I think it's going to look really nice, the white standing out against the black. So off I go and I'm cutting it. Now, I have finally cut out my tree and I am going to stick it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a stick of glue. You can feel free to use PVA or whatever you want, but a stick of glue is always handy because it sticks quickly and dries quickly. So I'm going to make sure that I have all my little branches all done. Oopsie daisy. Stick, 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 making a nice mess. Stick, stick, stick. Now, so I'm going to stick my tree on and I'm going to put the roots at the very bottom of the page. And I'm going to go up and just make sure the rest of it is glued down properly. Now, so that's my tree done on my background, and I'm going to make some little leaves next to stick on. You can use anything metallic, so today I'm going to be using gold paper. But if you don't have metallic paper at home, you can choose another color, or you could actually glue some tin foil to some paper. So next, I'm going to cut out some strips of gold paper, like that. And this is what my leaves are going to be on. So you can see now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to layer up. So I'm actually going to put 3 pieces of gold paper on top of each other so I don't have to cut out every leaf as it goes. So you can see I have my little leaves made, and when I'm ready, I can glue them onto my tree. Now, the idea of the gold leaves is every time that you do a good deed or commit an act of altruism, I want you to stick on another little leaf on your tree and see how full you can make it, okay? So I'm gluing some on there like that. I'm going to show you the altruism tree that I did for myself at home. As you can see, I've been very, very good. No, but it is just an example to show you of how nice it can be, and you can write my altruism tree, or I could have written Clíona's altruism tree, or whatever you want. So, our altruism tree is ready to go. And when you do a good deed, it doesn't matter if nobody else notices. Add a little leaf to your altruism tree. Whether if it's by helping out at home, playing a game you're not crazy about with your brother or sister, or just saying something kind, all of those are acts of altruism. See how long it takes you to fill your tree. And remember, if you do good things come back to you. Slán!